history. The history of the Warriors is not something that you can tell without the name Al Attles. And we lost him yesterday at age 87. So rest in peace. Our thoughts with his family. And we're thrilled, as always, to bring on the River Islands guest line the voice of the Dubs, Tim Roye, who we know knew Al very well. Tim, thank you for coming on. What does that man and that family mean to you?
Means just about everything. I mean, they're just tremendous people. You know, Al and Wilhelmina and Al Jr. They're just the kind of people you want to have as neighbors, as friends, and you know, they're not. You know, it's not a selfish family. It's a very unselfish family. You know, they give back. They have the Attles Center, and it's a hard day, but I'm trying to celebrate the day because, you know, when I first got to the Warriors, he was one of the first people that went out of his way to welcome me. You know, to make sure I felt welcomed. And, you know, if you're a new announcer in a new city, nobody in the Bay Area really knew anything about me or who I was. And he was the one. He was still going on trips back then, and we would talk a little bit about jazz on some of the flights. And you know, if I could get him, he would tell me a story or two. And you know, if you can make a case that the NBA in Northern California is very successful in two different cities, in part because of Al Attles. Before the Kings moved to Sacramento, those people were Warrior fans, and Al Attles was the face of the franchise. And one, you know, and everybody had a good word or a story about Al, and you know, the success of the NBA in Northern California, you know, in a very large part goes to Al Attles.
What does it say about Al that he has been with an organization for 64 years, going with the team and the move, and then going in the front office and being a part of multiple different ownership groups?
It just says that there's no Warriors franchise without him, that he was the one guy. There was no question. You weren't going to fire him. You weren't going to move him on or hurt him off somewhere. He had to be part of the deal. You know, he was before Steph Curry, he was the face of the franchise. You know, before the Warriors dynastic run, when people talked about the Warriors, when Warrior fans got excited about the Warriors, they would talk about the 74-75 team, you know, coached by Al, you know, the huge win over, you know, Chicago in the Western Finals, and then sweeping the Bullets, and nobody thought they could do that. And that was the Warrior championship team for the longest of times. And Al was always right in the middle of it. Player, he came over from Philadelphia, one of the last links to the Philadelphia Warriors that's still alive. You know, he became a player coach. A player coach. What a concept, right? You know, and he told this great story to me about how Franklin Mealy, the wonderful owner of the Warriors back then, called him up, and he had the idea. He wanted Al to become player coach, and he says, Franklin put a pot of coffee on. He goes, I don't drink coffee, right? So you know, he says, think about some more, and eventually, you know, Al agreed to do it on a temporary basis, and that started, you know, his career as Warriors head coach, and you know, was the rock of the franchise, moved into the executive branch of it. And again, I just can't say enough. Let me tell you this about Al. In travels, up even through this year, if I stop somewhere on the road and I run into Bernard King, I run into Larry Smith, I run into Purvis Short, I run into World Be Free, anybody, Hank McDowell, anybody that has had an association with Al, either played against him or coached by him, played with him, all said the same thing. Hey, give Al my best. Tell him we'll catch up soon. I'll give him a call, and you know, just make sure you say hi to Al Attles for me. I mean, that shows you the type of respect that he had, you know, not only here in the Bay Area, but around the country.
Tim Roye with us here on Willard and Dibs 95.7 The Game. Tim, especially when an icon who's been around for a long time, when this happens, and, you know, we've got listeners who might be in their 20s or 30s, and they're like, I don't really know much about this person. I think you're sharing a lot of it here, but I also love to hear just like, what was it like to be in a room with him?
He just, you know, first of all, the voice. That voice, I don't know where that voice came from, but that voice he had, it just was deep, it was gravelly, and it caught your attention. If he yelled at you, you stood up and said, yes, sir. You know, I mean, it was, you know, he was certainly not a guy that I think his players wanted to be on the wrong side of. I mean, as a player, he was nicknamed the Destroyer. You know, he played out of a guard spot and was one of the toughest players ever to play in the NBA. That's why he got the nickname. You know, and I just think that, you know, he commanded the room if he were in the room, but he also had, even with that toughness that he had a sense of grace. He had a sense of humility. So that even if he was like in a player meeting, you know, he knew that players and respected players and just had an affinity for the game and he just knew how to treat people. He was a really nice man, a really nice, unselfish man, and I miss him already.
Yeah, Tim Roye here on 95.7 The Game. What sort of a role, formal or informal, has he played over the last 10-plus years, particularly in the Steph Curry era, to where he's been able to be just a solid role model for this new age of player here in Golden State?
Well, just having him around was great. You know, just seeing him in the office or coming out to a practice as he did. You know, not so much in the last few years, but maybe at the beginning of Steph's run here. Just having him around and, you know, being just, you know, if you were a coach, you had to go over to him and say hi and you know, try to maybe glean some wisdom from him. I mean, just a rock. And again, you know, until the Warriors started winning titles in this era, you know, he's the most beloved guy in franchise history. Everybody loved Al. And so it was just great to have him around. He was just a nice guy to have, a great resource for someone like me on the history of the Warriors franchise. I remember we did a TV interview, he and I got to find the footage of that. We were up in the suite at Oracle and over an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of stuff. Just sat and talked about the history of the game and about, you know, players and his life, and it was just wonderful. I was just thrilled to be able to do that. And you know, again, I think if you're a young listener right now, you know, research him, because there's no groundwork for Steph Curry and the Warriors without Al Attles solidifying the NBA and the franchise here.
Tim, I just read something, speaking of research, I just read something online, and I want to share just a wow moment with everybody. Apparently this is an NBA record. Al Attles has been on the Warriors payroll in one capacity or another for 62 years.
How about that?
The longest uninterrupted streak of any person with one team in league history.
Yeah, I'm the longest tenured Warrior announcer in history. This is my 30th year. Okay,
congrats.
And but think about that. He was around. He's been twice as long and then some. I mean, that's incredible.
That's crazy.
It's incredible.
62 years.
Right. He was longer tenured with the Warriors than I've been longer tenured on Earth.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's not even close, Tim.
No, it is. It's close.
It's getting closer all the time, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, it's actually. I mean,
you just did something that I do twice a day, Tim. Just kind of go, Dibs.
Yeah.
Jeez. Good Lord.
I mean, just while we have you, Tim, and I.
By the way, we should also mention that Al was a great part of history in 74, 75. He and Casey Jones faced off in the NBA Finals. First time ever in American sports history that two African-American head coaches faced each other in a championship. Yeah. And that's you know, we talk about we still have so much farther to go in our culture and everything, but that's a great moment.
Yeah, and just I know you're a basketball historian, so can you just teach these young whippersnappers like the two guys behind the glass, Grandy and Lucas, just about what that championship meant for the Golden State Warriors? Because this was not like, you know, Steph and KD where they were expected to win. This has been seen as one of the biggest upsets in NBA Finals history, right?
Absolutely. They came out of nowhere. They won 48 games that year. Al Attles had this incredible idea that he was going to play a lot of players. He had young athletic players like Derek Dickey and George Johnson, and he had Rick Barry was the fulcrum there, and so he ran all these players in and out of the lineup. He had Phil Smith and Jamal Wilkes, and so they had a very deep team, and they would wear teams down. That's how they won. They would wear people down. In each of I think of the finals games, they fell behind, I think, by 10 points or more, I think, in all 4 games and came back and won all 4. And so this was a team that the Bay Area just fell in love with and probably should have went back and won a second title in 75-76, but lost in Game 7 to Phoenix, who went on to play the Boston Celtics. But because I think that year, I think you could make the case the Warriors were the best team in basketball. But it was a magical time, for the Warriors because it gave the Bay Area a championship, and those weren't coming around like they have been in this era, right? So the Niners had yet to become the Niners, right? The Giants weren't winning World Series, and the Sharks weren't even around yet. So that was the Bay Area's championship team for a long time, and it helped. It helped solidify the Warriors and their fan base, the passionate fan base, and that's what's carried them on through the years.
Our guy, Tim Roye, voice of the Dubs, joining us here on 95.7 The Game. The homage to Al Attles, just absolutely unmatched and beautiful. Hey, while we've got you, though, I would love to hear a thought or two on this offseason, which has gone from Klay Thompson's departure to Lauri Markkanen rumors to Paul George stuff to Olympic gold and now to this, where we'll probably have a little quiet and calm before this thing gets started. What do you think of the offseason that's been?
I'm really curious. I think they're definitely deeper, I think, in quality players, and I think it's a year where they're going to need Podziemski, Kuminga, and Moody. Their younger players have to step up and be better. I think if they can, Melton and Anderson, I think, are quality pros that they have added. Buddy Hield can shoot the lights out. So they've got, I think, a nice collection here, and I'm really curious to see how it all fits. I think it's going to be a very exciting preseason to watch this and to see how the parts all work together. So I think it's exciting. Let's face it. I'm bummed that Klay's not around. I'm going to miss him. He's Klay. He's just the unique NBA player that he is, unique person that he is. And but as we know in sports, all things come to pass, and just be thankful we saw him for that long.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, and maybe the only thing more fun to watch of late was Steph Curry in the U.S. winning gold. What was your just impression? Where were you when you were watching the game? And it didn't look like that it was all for naught in the finals so much, but the semis, it was getting to be a little bit nervous there, Tim.
Yeah, the U.S. goes into these things now at a disadvantage. They're throwing together an all-star team that's been together for a month, and the other countries have players that at their core have been playing together for years. So it's been but I think they came together at the right time. And I really thought, I was so happy for Steph. It's the one piece of his puzzle that had yet to be fulfilled. And not only did he get it, but he helped the team win it in a very big way. And, they don't win against Serbia, if he doesn't get off to a great start in that game. They don't win against France unless he takes the game over right at the end. So very, very happy for Steph. And, again, we have to be ready if we want to keep winning golds because the rest of the world they're not coming. They've caught up now.
Tim Roye, always great to hear your voice, my friend, and condolences go out to the entire Warrior family, and that's you too.
I appreciate that, and on behalf of the Warriors organization, we have nothing but love for the Attles family, and we thank Al for just a wonderful career.
Tim, thanks, man.
All right.
Okay.